From 0 to 3 in 1 year, proxy advisory firms have hit the headlines, and how. Their presence most felt this AGM season as recommendations to vote for or against company resolutions have come in thick and fast. So who are these scrutinizers of corporate action, self-appointed guardians of shareholder rights? What is their governance philosophy? Why should companies and their investors take them seriously? Well, today on this episode of The Firm, we bring you the activists. Hello and welcome to this special edition as we examine the purpose, philosophy and popularity of proxy advisory firms. With me in the studio are the founders of all three. So let me start by introducing them one by one. In order of creation, Sriram Subramaniam, Managing Director of InGovern, India's first proxy advisory firm. Founded in June 2010, InGovern has a total team size of 8 and boasts of former Infoscion Mohandas Pai as advisor and investor. Corporate governance expert Shankar Jagannathan is also an advisor to the company. In his earlier avatar, InGovern founder Sriram Subramaniam offered technology consulting services to foreign proxy advisory firms.
I had experience globally consulting to global asset management firms, and I had seen how they behave as responsible investors, how they engage with companies on a yearly basis. They send annual letters on governance or their expectations to their investee companies every year.
Right.
Then I thought, hey, such a experience or such a institution is not there in India, where institutional investors are acting responsibly. So then I thought the need for a proxy advisory firm existed.
Okay. From credit ratings to governance ratings, Amit Tandon, formerly of Fitch, now founder, managing director of IIAS. Also founded in 2010, Institutional Investor Advisory Services or IIAS has drawn well-known investors like the Bombay Stock Exchange, Axis Bank, HDFC, ICICI Pru and Tata Investment Corp. A staff of 12 covers 300 listed companies under the supervision of former Ambuja Cements Managing Director Anil Singhvi and his co-founder Amit Tandon, the former Managing Director of Fitch Ratings India.
Sitting at Fitch, one was looking at a lot of instances where companies were doing certain things and acts, and as a rating agency, actually it wasn't really impacting the rating very much. Right. And that actually brought to the fore that slowly governance is kind of moving center stage, and if India were to attract capital, some of these issues need to be addressed head on rather than brushed under the carpet. So we just spoke about this idea to a couple of large investors who were there in the domestic market. We spoke to entities like the Bombay Stock Exchange, who have a frontline regulation role as far as corporates are concerned, and all of them seem to like the idea.
And they're all equity investors.
They've all kind of come in with equity investments in the company, and that's pretty much how it happened.
Okay. Also with me, J.N. Gupta, former executive director at market regulator SEBI and now founder of India's third proxy advisory firm, SES.
Stakeholders Empowerment Services or SES is a not-for-profit company founded in May 2012 by 3 IIT Kanpur graduates, but they're not from the same batch. Amrendra Singh, Arjun Gupta and his father, former SEBI director J.N. Gupta. Former SEBI whole-time director M.S. Sahu plays advisor to SES.
My SEBI experience, 2 stints in SEBI, gave me idea that there is a lot of gap that is there in India and maybe world over also in what we preach, what we practice.
Right.
And the corporate governance was one area where we found that maybe there are rules and regulations, but whether they are being followed in spirit or not is not there. So I felt there is a need to educate and empower the investors who will be in a position to make sure that whatever are the laws are enforced. Certainly we will not call ourselves activists, we will call ourselves educationists.
And it's interesting that you brought up the issue of complying with laws, not just technically but in spirit, because that allows me to pick up the first issue that I want to in this discussion, and the purpose of this discussion is to look at governance from the eyes of your 3 firms. I think the one common area, or rather the 3 common areas that all your reports have covered are independent director tenure, audit firm tenure and remuneration. And let me start with independent director tenure.
No Indian law or regulation prescribes any limit on the tenure of independent directors. The MCA's voluntary code suggests 6 years and a non-mandatory provision in clause 49 recommends 9. all three proxy advisory firms do not consider directors to be independent if their tenure exceeds 9 years.
Our view when we spoke to people, spoke to directors, spoke to companies is that look, after 9 years, the ability of a person to kind of contribute to it, contribute to the discussions actually tends to come down a bit because of the familiarity. The second thing which was which kind of caused us to take this view is that look, once you've been there for 9 years, you've been a part of certain decisions which the company's taken, and then you would find it very difficult to kind of go back and say, look, we decided something in 2007-8, it was the wrong decision. So having been a part of that decision, you kind of tend to take ownership over the decision, and you might, if it's kind of not worked out the way you wanted to, it's very difficult for you to then turn back and say that, look, I'm going to reverse the decision. And therefore we felt 9 years is a reasonable length of time for people to continue on as independent directors on the board.
So your hard limit is 9.
Having said so, we understand that look, someone could turn around and say, look, I've had this person on the board for 12 years, 13 years. We believe they genuinely contribute to the discussions. They genuinely help us out with the strategy. In those cases, we tell companies that look, you should bring on someone else, another independent director, so that the balance between the independents and non-independents.
So classify this gentleman who's been on your board for several years, and you want to retain him as non-independent and bring on
someone else on your board.
May I assume that that is the broad philosophy that all three of you follow?
Yeah, agreed. Yes? See, but the independence could also be questioned on other counts apart from just tenure, because there could be conflict of interest. I mean, we have seen in your program itself brought out about a month ago how some people are with law firms and solicitor firms.
So several lawyers whose law firms then provide services to those companies as well.
We brought out more than
but just short of the related party, just short of the limits set out by the law. Right?
Yeah, the limits set out by law, but in spirit they are earning. Again they are earning their bread and butter through the company on which they are classified as independent.
Okay, I agree with the position that all three firms are taking, but companies are likely to argue you by saying, listen, we understand you expect spirit, but the law requires this much. We've gone the full length of the law. Why would you then start raising issues about whether we're classifying the right kind of directors independent or not, and creating doubt in the minds of our shareholders? Because if that's the case, change the law.
Okay.
Which could happen with the company's bill.
See, as I told you initially, that it is not the compliance with the law alone. The whole corporate governance is an issue of ethics. Okay, now today when you say independent director.
But ethics is today, sir, you all are taking the cue from the voluntary code which says 6 to 9 years, or clause 49's non-mandatory clause.
I am making a point.
A fourth proxy advisory firm would say, listen, to me the hard limit is 4 years. How do you draw the line?
So let us go one by one. Now what are the parameters for shareholders in general to judge whether the director is truly independent or not? When you have no communication from the company on a board meeting, in one resolution, other resolution, what is the behavior of the directors? Now every resolution is passed unanimously. Now I have yet to come across an issue in my home also, or in my office also, where on a single issue the entire community agrees. So till such time there is some other means of communication to show that this director has been independent, has an independent mind. So you have to have a parameter of association number of years.
Now, when you say how do you decide when the law doesn't require a term?
I am coming to that. See, the law, the new company bill has said 5 plus 5 years, 2 tenures.
That's correct.
So the company will also recognize the 10 years.
Not yet an act.
Not yet an act. So now, should we wait for a thing to become law?
As a company, I could complain that you're creating doubt in the minds of my shareholders.
I'm not saying the company is bound to accept my thing, or shareholders are bound to accept. What we are saying, we're educating. Education is a process where I'm telling you this is my opinion and this is the right thing. Whether you agree with me or not, it is that person's point of view.
Okay. Sriram brought up the issue of several independent directors whose firms, either law firms or audit firms, provide some services to the company, but short of the legally objectionable limits. What are some of the other instances that you have seen in your experience of scrutinizing reports where independence has come under question, not just because of tenure?
Well, one of the things we find is that, you have a set of directors who are kind of repeated in companies. So a good case in point is if you look at Bajaj Auto, Bajaj, the group. So there are, if you kind of look at the independent directors and you look at the listed companies in the group, you would find that someone like Nanu Pamnani and Mr. Balaji Rao are there in 4 group companies. You go down the list and look at the list and you would find that some members who are on the board of Bajaj Auto are on the board of 2 other group companies. So we find that, look, if you've got the same set of directors who are kind of repeated in all the group companies, then you kind of wonder whether are they truly independent, or is it just because it's convenient to have them there that you're persisting, you've decided to persist with them.
Right. See, in fact, even within the same group, there are instances where we came across one in Godrej, wherein somebody has been an executive director in a group company, now is classified as an independent director on another group company when they join the board.
Right.
So the fact is that independence is compromised because there is no cooling off period from the time he or she was an executive director and now is classified as an independent director.
Okay, I think there are several instances based on your reports. I think in a recent report you all raised the issue with Ravi Kulkarni on the board of Tech Mahindra as an independent director, even while he was on the board of Mahindra and Mahindra. That's one. Then the issue of Shapur Mistry being on the board of Indian Hotels, even while as an independent director. And I know Indian Hotels has come back with a response to us saying the law allows us to do this.
See, nobody is questioning appointment of Mr. Shapur Mistry on the board of Indian Hotel.
No, as independent directors. They are saying that the law allows us.
No, law does not allow.
Because he was appointed as independent director before Cyrus Mistry.
No. The independence is not cast in stone. Independence is at each and every moment an independent.
That's a fair point.
The other issue which we actually find, the other issues we kind of bring up is one is attendance of directors. We find that, and what we do is, we kind of understand if people are not there for 1 year. Attendance is low in any particular given year. So we then go back and look at what it is over the last 3 years and see what it is.
I think in one of your reports, you pointed out that Analjeet Singh on the Dabur board
has not attended any meeting in the last 3 years.
He attended the first meeting when he was appointed. In the last 4 years, he has not attended any.
And yet he was up for reappointment this year.
In Cummins board, Mr. P.S. Dasgupta is the independent director. And he has attended only 1 meeting of board, 1 AGM and 1 audit committee meeting. All happened in 1 day.
That's why. So he was available on that day.
Imagine he would travel from Delhi to Pune and go back the same day. So 15 minutes for each meeting or something like this. So this is what we call it a compliance only for the tick box approach compliance.